Afternoon, Mike.
Hello, Peter.
Um, it's a quite a sunny afternoon at the moment, which is nice in December, and we're going to look at some aspects of characterization and character. Is what I've gathered from our sort of offstage chat. And one of the things that I remember you did when I assisted you, and that you do with all your productions, is this thing that you call character lists. And can I just preface this by saying, I mean, you might say it again, but what amazed me when I sort of started to learn about what you were doing there was that you would do character lists for every single character in that play. Whereas the actors only had to do it for their own characters, you did it for every single character there. So you got to know that script like it was, like you'd written it virtually. But maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse. Tell me what are these character lists?
Okay, well, let me preface all that two things by saying that the director should do all the character lists because exactly what you said, that's one of the very best ways of learning the play and learning it accurately, learning what the writer has put on the stage or put in the script rather. Yeah. Okay. Now, I can't remember if we've talked about my rehearsal procedure. Maybe that's another topic. But I divide a day up into three strands. One is working on anything to do with the text, like actions, objectives, points of concentration, logic text, the conflicts going on between the characters in the text, yes? The other strand is what I call the world of the play, where you're exploring the cultural and stylistic differences that you might have to explore and create for this particular play. Because if I'm doing a Phaedo farce, it's going to be very difficult from doing a Greek tragedy. And you have to say, what do the actors need to play Phaedo? Which won't be appropriate to a Greek tragedy, and what do they need for a Greek tragedy? To put it very crudely, okay, so I think people can imagine this, but all those things need working on and exercising, not sort of being allowed to happen in a rather vague, generalized way. You know, the actors playing tragedy and suddenly putting on very, boring, cliched faces and so forth. And the third strand, which is what we're going to talk about today, is work on the character. It's very good to work on the character outside the script. Mm-hmm. Because what happens often is there's a conversation about your character, and all the way through rehearsals, people are saying, "Oh, I think my character should do this, and I think your character should do this, and my character's feeling this, and and it's all very vague and wishy-washy, and often very subjective, and it often gets you into stupid arguments with your director because nobody's talking concretely about, what the writer has put into the text. So, in order to characterize, I have to use the information that Chekhov or Ibsen or Shakespeare or Beckett or Pinter or Terence Rattigan or whoever has put into the play. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean to say at all that it locks you into everybody playing exactly the same thing. On the contrary, but you've got the information, and once you've got the information, how you interpret it is up to the creativity and imagination of the actor and directors. Yeah. So the very practical, factual thing to do is to go through the script and write out 4 lists. The first list is the facts. What does the text give you in terms of facts about the character? Now, facts means anything that you cannot argue with. It's a fact. In The Three Sisters, Masha wears black. That is a fact. Chekhov has said that. It obviously means something. So if you, the director, and you, the actor, want to change it, you've got to decide why you want to change it and remove it from what Chekhov has clearly visualized as something important to say about the character. Okay? Facts are backstories that are sort of confirmed by at least 2 mentions, or preferably 3 or more. Descriptions of how the character behaves. So it's filleting from the stage directions all that information which is practical, like coughs, hums, sings, smiles, cries. Anything that's adverbial, like angrily, noisily, I cut out, because that's imposing an interpretation. You sort of understand what the writer's meaning, but ignore them because they can limit the actor to cliches. Oh, I've got to be angry here without him. And what does angry mean? Well, we've talked about that with emotion, right? So anything that describes an emotion or is adverbial, I ignore. But anything they do, even sitting and standing might be useful with a great playwright or a very precise playwright like Pinter or Chekhov. They clearly know what they're doing, and it's worth trying them out to see if they make sense. Okay. If you get to O'Neill, that's another question, because his stage directions go on for pages and pages, and and they'll just confuse you rather than help you. So, okay, so it very much depends on the quality and the style of the writing. Okay, so you get the facts and you write them down and try to organize them so that there's a sort of chronology, you know, the name of the character, their age or when they were born, their sort of status, unmarried, daughter, all their family relationships, you know, mother's dead, she's got 2 brothers, whatever it is, their job if they have any, whether they've got children, and then things they do. That's nothing. The main, not everything they do, every single action in the play, but the main actions they do. You know, it's no good saying she picks up a teacup. That's, it's in the script, but it's not, unless she keeps doing it a lot, I wouldn't bother with it, yes. Or crosses the stage. I don't think, unless you find that character is repeating that sort of action, I wouldn't keep it in. And so, and then you don't use anything that describes emotion. She's in love, she loves somebody. You find another way of saying she seems to be, she declares her love or talks about her love for somebody, because that's a fact, or vice versa. You try to create sentences rather than verbs, rather than adjectives and adverbs, and it's very, very specific. Okay, so you make that list. Now, it doesn't matter whether there's 10 facts or 40. If you're doing an Ibsen play where the past is terribly important, you will find pages and pages and pages. If you do a Shakespeare play, like, for instance, Lady Macbeth, you might find there are 2 or 3 facts or 4 facts. Yeah. She says, I've known what it is to give suck. So she had a child. Did it die? We don't know, but she's had a child. Okay, she's married to Macbeth. She participates in the murder of Duncan. She sleepwalks and tries to wash her hands and dies. Maybe 1 or 2 more, but it's very simple, you see. Okay, then you come to the second list, is what the character says about herself or himself. And you put down anything that has an I, me, my, and we, if I'm talking about myself and other people, no, we, our family, yeah, you put that down. And you just write down what you say about yourself, okay? And you go through the play chronologically, act by act, and when in doubt, put it in. Even things like I think or I remember is quite useful, because often some characters say, I think a lot, I think. Put it down. If there's a reference to yourself in a long speech, only fill it out, that part of the speech which refers to the character's description themselves. Otherwise, you will clutter up this list. And I'll explain why later on, how it's used practically. Okay. So I'm unhappy today. I'm bored. I've known him for years. I only eat vegetables. I got lost in the street. I love so-and-so. So-and-so loves me. You're so nasty to me. You know, yeah. And some of those phrases you might have to use in another list, what other people say about me. I love Vashinin. That's both about herself and it's about Vashinin. So it would go into two lists. Okay. So you go through the play, what you say about yourself. Okay. Good. Then you do another list, which is what other people say about me. Oh, she's this, she's that, she's stupid. She gets on my nerves. I miss her. She seems to have vanished. I've known her for years. Okay? Why does she always do that? Okay, anything that refers to the other character. She's wearing white again. And who does she think she is? You know, whatever. Okay. And then the final list, the fourth list, is what the character says about other people. So it's what I say about myself, what other characters say about me, and what I say about other people. Now, you also include in what I say about other people, it's referring to people who may not appear in the play, okay, like Protopopov in The Three Sisters, who has an affair with Masha and is the chairman of the local board, okay, or people who are dead. You know, my darling mama when she was alive, and so put those down too, because they may be revealing, okay? And it takes a long time, so don't rush it. And I would advise an actor to just do it, start just for half an hour, you know, and go through it chronologically. And it's preferable to do it with handwriting, to write it down, because there's something more personal and physically intimate connected with the shapes you make and how, which gives somehow a deeper understanding. If you're just typing it up on a screen, it won't have nearly the same effect. Okay, and even though you're using your own handwriting, try to write clearly, because you're going to have to read these lists out later on and also read them.
Are you cheating if you go, this is this is about me, and the 4 lines later it's about somebody else, so I do it there? Or do you go through the whole play and just do the me and then?
Very good question, Peter, and quite right. Yes, you will be treating. Don't try to do them all at once. Go through for each list, go through the whole play. Because yes, it takes time. Well, with some characters it does, some characters it doesn't, you know, but you go through the whole play. And also for 2 of those sequences, you can just look at your own text. But for what other people say about me, you have to go through the whole play to make sure you miss the thing. So if it does nothing else, I am reassured when I come to the first day of rehearsal that the actors have read the play at least 4 times, hopefully more. And what in fact happens is they come very informed and ready to move on, rather just to flounder around, just say, well, I feel, you know, it's all vague. Okay, so you then do those 4 lists. And I, as the director, I'll explain this as well because it will clarify. I'm doing all the lists of all the characters, and it does take a hell of a long time. And you just got to take a deep breath. And when you do Shakespeare, you feel you will never come to the end of it, because amazingly, they talk about each other so much and they describe each other in such complexity with metaphors and images and similes and so forth. So it's a lot of work. Oh, that's something else you can put into the facts. I'm sorry. If you find that your character uses a lot of imagery or similes or metaphors a lot, more than others, you can put that down. If they swear a lot, you can put that down. Any patterns you find in their speech, you can put that down as a fact because that's the way the writer has written the character. If your character doesn't finish thoughts, if your character tends to talk at length, put it down because it's a fact. You can, the other facts you can put down, but you can't do that until you've done the whole play, is who does your character talk about the most? Which characters do you talk about the most? Who the least? Are there some characters you don't talk about at all? Who talks about you the most? Because that can be very revealing. You know, a sort of negative approach, you know, via negativa, as Grotowski says, you actually can learn, you suddenly realize, oh my God, in the Three Sisters, practically nobody talks about Olga. The whole play. Why? It's information for you to conjecture on and put together with other information and start to build a character. Okay, so that's the process.
You used the word conjecture, and I was going to ask you about that. Are you going to get on to that?
Yes, I am now. Yes. Now, I as the director might jump a little bit ahead tentatively, starting, I read through those lists and I see what keeps coming up to me. There may be repetitions of phrases which some translators in the past have decided were boring, and so they retranslated each of the repetitions and took a whole chunk of character away, you know, which is okay. And I sort of get a smell of the character, and then I read all the lists and the facts, and then I start to make for myself a list of conjectures. She could be, he could be, he might be, it's possible. These conjectures are not facts, but they're reasonable conjectures based on the information I've gleaned for myself from these lists, you see. And then I start to think about super objectives and Laban efforts for the characters, and I might just jot them down for myself just to hold me in. Now, what happens practically is we start rehearsal, and on the very first day, I can say to you, okay, Peter, you're going to play, I don't know, the Parkin or Gaiath in the cherry orchard. Please read your lists. And that's why you have to read them clearly and not say, oh, I think on this page, oh, wait a moment. And I think here he says, and you just read them through calmly and coherently. I do this, I do that, so we can hear it, okay? And you go through your lists, and then at the end of it, I will say, Peter, from that information, just the facts, does it give you any useful information, possibility about the character? Does it help you to start to see the character? And you can say, yeah, a little bit here, a little bit there. It seemed to imply this, seemed to imply that. And he can make notes and I can make notes. And then I open it up to the rest of the company, so they can contribute, because this is very much a group ensemble enterprise. And what you as a director have to be very careful that the people don't just keep talking and being indulgent, but you say, what do you have any images? And some people are very quick to talk and some people are very shy. Anyway, and the director should shut them up if they're rambling on and not making anything very useful. And then you write those down as well as a little conjecture. You then go on to the next three lists, asking the same question of the actor who's playing the character and the rest of the company, okay? And this is quite a slow process. That's why the actor has to be very clear. In The Seagull, my name is Masha, my mother is Paulina, my father is Shamraev, he is the estate manager for Sorin. I follow Trofimov around and I talk about being in love with him. I wear black. I use a lot of images which try to present me as somebody who's already dead. I marry the schoolmaster, Medvedenko. I have a baby. Even after I've married him, I keep coming back to visit, to be around where Kostya is. Okay? There's probably more. this character is written out in detail and different every night if anybody wants to look at it, very detailed. Okay, okay, those are the facts. Okay, so it's clear. So you start again. I wear black. I drink. My leg falls asleep. I take snuff. I talk about myself as being dead or past. Okay, I'm in love with Kostya. I married a school teacher. I have a baby.
Mm.
Also, I waltz while making a bed up for Kostya's uncle, Sorin. Kostya's playing a piano off stage, and I waltz while doing the pillows. Okay, then, okay, good. All right.
You're saying not, you don't need that as such. You're
Yeah,
saying,
I would say that. Oh, yes, because it's something she does, which is rather unusual.
yeah, it's not habitual. It's not
No.
something. Okay.
Well, if it's something that's over and over again repeated, put it down. Because it's a fact that she frequently cries or frequently argues. Yeah. But you have to make some sort of intelligent selection of what you'll put in. I don't want, some people say, oh, she says this here, then she closes the door, then she opens the door, then she says, you say, no, that'll come out in the other lists when I say, so you need, and again, quantity is not the thing, it's quality. Okay. And you go through the 4 lists, as I said, and then you say to the actor involved, okay, with all this information on the very first day, knowing that you really don't know very much about the character at all, what do you think her super objective might be? What do you think her drive in life, her need in life, the way she wants to live her life? What is moving her forward through her life? Before the play begins, then she walks into the play and it carries on, and then it goes out with her at the end of the play. And usually actors make quite good guesses. They might be a bit broad, a bit generalized. And then I will suggest things, and we come to some sort of temporary semi-decision, which is not in concrete, it's not in cement, it's not carved in stone. It's a reasonable starting point, which can be changed as we discover more and more about the character. But it's giving you something to change. Okay, then I say, okay, what is her through line? What is she trying to achieve during the play? And in a Chekhovian play, it's a little more difficult because they're not so obviously plotty. In the Phaedo, it might be to hide my affair with another, from my wife, my affair with another woman. That's what I'm trying to do through the play, as much as possible, yeah? Okay. In farce, so much more tangible and concrete. Okay. But it's what is Hamlet trying to do through most of the play? Find a justification for revenging his father by killing Claudius. It only starts after the ghost has told him the truth, and it's sort of died by the time he comes back from exile in England, right? Okay, good. So then I'll say, okay, what if you know about Laban efforts, what do you think your character's like? Does your character seem to be light, which means that they deal with life with ease, with effortlessness, there's no problems? Or are they strong, which means that they have to overcome resistance and are capable of doing that? And then you do possible animals. The Laban is eventually quite specific because it's tied up with the body and it's psychologically and physically accurate eventually. The animal is totally imaginative. And there's a Michael Chekhov exercise called the physical center, where you imagine where does your character's energy in life come from? What part of your body? And they might say, oh, it's my stomach or my head, or so forth. And it's whatever stimulates the actor, because it's totally an imaginative and stimulating thing. And you can give that point of concentration any sort of quality. It can be hard or soft, you know, rubbery or feathery or chunky or vibrating or still, or it doesn't, you know, and it's in you. Now, it can also be outside you with, say, Irina in the Three Sisters. It's out there somewhere. Oh, the future's going to be wonderful. Oh, to work, and she's a dreamer, so it's out in the future. So she's led. So, you know, or it could be another person.
Mm.
Yeah, I think in the seagull, Costa's superobjective is in his mother, which is a very limited superobjective to get his mother's love. And that's why he commits suicide when he realizes there's no chance of getting it, because his options are very small, because his superobjective is very narrow. I mean, an example for that would be, let's say I in life, I'm a dancer and I adore dancing, and I have a car accident and I can't dance. I will probably start to choreograph and teach and find my way to use myself that way, and maybe find a way of moving on stage depending on what the disability is. If I only want to dance and to be on my feet in front of an audience and I can't see any alternative, I might see there's no point in living. Okay, so so you make that list and you could add to it anything you as the director and the actors think is useful. I always avoid color and music because they're so subjective and they're so vague. I just don't find them terribly helpful. That the actor can do by herself or himself. Okay, so we've got this list. Everybody's sat there. I then say to them all, okay, get up on your feet, and for about 20 minutes or to half an hour, I want you to take any aspect of that character which appeals to you or interests you and explore it for yourself. Don't get involved in another actor. Just, you know, if I were that character or what, and somebody might do an animal, somebody might do some Laban, somebody might try to imagine a realistic situation, a scene from the play, somebody might imagine a scene for the character. It doesn't matter what they start with, you know, and the person whose character it is also starts. And halfway through, I'll just call and say, come and watch the others. And that actor will come and sit with his or her notebook. And if they see anything they like, they will jot down what they see. And when that's all over, and you need, as a director, to give the actors time to warm up, to get themselves going, to find their way into it. Once they get going, it can become very, very interesting, you know, to watch. And what you will have is a room full of people playing Mashas or Andres or whoever. And there's a certain atmosphere that's created, which is very interesting for the director, because it's quite, every character is different. However different the actors are within the character, there's a sort of mood that's established, which is quite useful to observe. Okay, when that's ended, you ask the other actors, is there anything that you thought about which we haven't discussed? Don't just go over old ground. If something made you feel something or see something, say, oh, I think she must be very lonely. I think, and so forth and so on. If people start talking too much, gently and discreetly, the director should cut them off. So then what the actor whose character is being dealt with ends up with a huge dossier of possibilities for their character. They've got the facts, they've got what they've thought and discussed with me, what other people have suggested, what they've observed from other people actually getting on their feet and doing it, and what other people have said after they've done it. So there's a lot of very useful information. Now that actor can check out, they don't have to use any of it, of what the other actors have said, but it's there as a possibility. So they can't, I don't know if you've had this experience, but occasionally, and very much more in the past, I'd say something to an actor in the middle of rehearsal. Oh, I don't know who my character is yet. You know, this terrible, oh God, I don't, you know, as though you can know your character before you do anything. You are finding your character through the work, and you'll never stop finding your character because it'll go on and on through however many performances are. Yeah, okay. So that is the process. And it's very useful because what it is doing, which is very much a part of my process, it's starting with the factual stuff of the script, the analytical, objective thing, and using your head. And then you're starting to use your imaginations and then get into your bodies. And that's my sort of basic process through the play. Yeah. So that's it. So those are the character lists. Okay. And what you do practically is you take them one by one every day until you finish them all up. If you've got smaller characters with much less text, you might do two, or you might do a long one and a short one. It does take an hour and a half to 2 hours to get through all that sometimes with a big character. So you've got to be very patient. And that's why the reading out of the list needs to be succinct and clear and just what's on the page, not with, I think this is what she said, and all this blurring that actors often do. Okay, so that is the lists.
Good. I mean, it does occur to me, Mike, that sometimes one gets to know a character in a play better than one gets to know the closest friends and family that you have. In some ways, I mean, you know, that the kind of forensic exploration that you're talking about of a character in a play, we don't do that in our own lives, do we?
No, no, and also you must remember that a play is very contained, so it can only give you so much information, and so you're knowing everything about that character because you only know what the play tells you. Even though there's backstory, they're only giving you what they feel is relevant. So you've got to fill in the blanks for yourself, join up some dots occasionally. It's a very bad idea to imagine too much that isn't there.
But
Because,
yeah, sorry.
because you can give yourself false information, which isn't accurate.
But a bit like the word emotion, which we have explored in one of our talks, character is a tricky thing because and you've already alerted us to this. You know, character can be seen as a sort of an overall blanket explanation of somebody, whereas actually in real life, and I imagine you would argue in plays as well, we only discover character through the actions and objective pursuits that those characters pursue. You know, I mean, it's not as if there is a set you know, model that makes that character. And one other thing I'd want to say is, I presume, and I think I've witnessed this, I think we discussed that in the piece where I assisted you, and I've done it myself, where a character might have a physical center, like you said, with one of your characters out there somewhere. And I remember in the show that we were doing, you know, we felt that there was a character had a sort of center right up here. It was a priest or something. But gradually, as the play evolved, his physical center moved, it changed, it kind of developed. He developed as a person. And so there's nothing static.
No, there's absolutely nothing static. And it might only be good for, the physical center might just help you with a gesture. You know, it's just a possibility. And of course, your physical center could change. Yes, you see, all these techniques are malleable and movable. They're not boxes that you have to fit yourself into. They're tools for you to use for your craft. And you explore ways that you can use them. Yeah, they're a starting point. But the other thing you were saying about, yes, we can only understand people first by what they do, their actions. What they say is maybe not true. It's true that they said it, but it may not be the truth. It's the way they see things or want things to be seen or believe that's the way they see them. And you have to put those together with different things they say and what other people say about them. So you could say, oh, it looks as though she deludes herself a lot when she describes herself as such and such, you see. So we're learning from the outside to get into the inside. You see, what a play doesn't do, which a novel can do, the novel can get inside the heads and the feelings of the character and say, she felt this, she thought this, and tell us everything. But in a play, everything is, the play is a detective novel, and the text is the surface of they're the clues. And rehearsals about trying to interpret the clues and chase them up to see what's, underneath. I mean, I think it's a fairly healthy analogy, because you don't, or it's the 1/5 of the, or whatever it is, of the iceberg, the 1/8, the 1/7, the 1/5, I don't know. And, from that, but it's, yes, they're clues, and the brilliant authors, the Shakespeares, the Ibsens, the Czech, are giving you so many clues in so many ways, so subtly, that you can eventually find somebody of such complexity and wonderful self-contradiction, just fantastic. And, and just the way he has a group of people appearing together, the fact that those people are together can tell you something about the character. I mean, Chekhov is doing it in all sorts of ways. He's telling you about the character in the play, but not dogmatically or didactically or clumsily or obviously. It's just sitting there, their little clues waiting to be discovered, like a treasure hunt. It really is. And, the plays I've done a lot, every time I do, there's another clue I didn't realize. Oh, that's a clue. Oh my God, I didn't realize that. I'll give you a very good example. I mean, I know it's very limited, and if people don't know the Cherry Orchard, so be it. But at the end of the third act, after the Parkin has come back from the auction, says, I bought the Cherry Orchard. Lyubov Andreevna, who is the woman of the estate, is weeping copiously. She feels she's been betrayed and she's lost her darling home. Her daughter runs on stage and comforts her and says, it's all right, mother. We'll build a new orchard. We'll build more beautiful orchards, and everything will be lovely, and you'll be well. But also at the same time, Trofimov, the student, has come on with her. He doesn't say anything, but he's there, and you suddenly think, oh, I've never thought about that. Why does she come on with him? So you try to visualize the scene, and obviously the daughter, Anya, is holding her mother and comforting her. Presumably he's standing there watching them. Now, through the play, he has been trying to convert Anya to his way of thinking about the past has to be wiped away and we've got to build a new future. And she's buying it. She's buying the idea, because when she comes home at the beginning of the play, she says, oh, my darling orchard, I'll run out, I love, darling orchard. And then the end of Act 2, she's saying, we'll leave this orchard, we'll throw away the keys, we'll go away. And so Chekhov is saying she's talking to a mother influenced by Trofimov. And I never, in God knows how many years, I thought, oh, he just comes on with her because they've been dancing together at the party. But actually, he needn't have come on with her. But visually, even the way he's placing people, Chekhov, so you're looking, the fine-tooth comb, as they used to say, you're searching for the clues. And often they're there, but you just don't see them, but there it is. So this forensic work is terribly important, because it gives you firm ground to stand on. And the firmer the ground you stand on, the freer you feel to interpret. You don't feel locked. Often actors will say, oh, well, it's going to lock me. And you think, no, it's actually going to free you, because you've got concrete things to interpret and explore. If you're just walling around and ignoring what the text is, oh, I feel it's this, you're going to end up in an amorphous mishmash, which will end up with you playing the same old thing over and over again, because that's what makes you comfortable to play. Because the whole point of character is to aid the actors to transform themselves away from themselves into what the character needs. The character they've interpreted and discovered. Do you see? So that's the journey. Okay. So
no, go on, Mike. I was just
after this, after we've got through all the character lists, I try to keep the character work going separately for as long as I find things to do. So for instance, in the morning, after the actors have come in and warmed up, I would say, okay, before we start doing anything else, I want you each to spend half an hour working on your character by yourselves, exploring anything you want, how they move, how they think, how they feel, what they do. I don't mind what you work on. and you let them just do that without commentary or comment. You just observe them for half an hour. Now, this is a very nice exercise for the actor, for the director, because you sit there and it's very peaceful. And there you have 10 actors, should we say, just working seriously and just starting to learn about the actors, how they work, what the emphasis is, their imaginations, their interest in detail, you know, and it's a very agreeable thing. And you don't say anything at all at the end of it. Uh, Maybe after 2 or 3 days of doing this, if you feel that somebody's going way away from what we've discovered in the analytical thing, you might gently bring it to their notes. I think you're drifting off because where you're going, there's nothing in the play that takes you over there. But that doesn't often happen, and you should let the actors explore so they feel uninhibited.
Would you, by the way, would you make that comment with everybody present, or would you?
No, that would just depend. I might say it to somebody. I don't, you know, I probably would say it more quietly, just an off. Oh, by the way, I think it's a little bit, you know, it depends if I feel I need to be discreet. You don't want to dampen the actors' freedom to explore, and so they get worried that you're going to say it's wrong. That's why you don't jump on them immediately. You see something that isn't quite to your taste in terms of the play, but let it go a bit. You know, there's lots of room for it to go. And then on some days, I will say, okay, I will give you something to work on today, all of you. I will give you the thing to search for. And it could be something like, it can vary from, I want you to explore how you sit in a chair. Or it could be, what is that part of the role which you're most frightened of? You know, so it can go from a very physical, simple thing to a quite personal thing about the actor's relationship to the role. And it's evolving, and most of the time you don't discuss anything, you let these things evolve. As long as the actors are sort of doing serious work and they're not deviating too much from, you know, there are some parameters to what one set up, you let it go. And then they'll feel free to contribute, okay? And then eventually you might do more elaborate sort of character work, which is not exactly improvisations, but you might say to the whole company, for instance, you're doing the seagull. Now, not everybody can appear at the same time in this, so it's a totally imagined thing. Let's imagine that everybody, every character that's in the play, you've had dinner and you've wandered down to the shore of the lake, and it's summer and it's warm, and you're just all sitting there with your own thoughts. I want you to maybe start with your super objective or an objective from somewhere in the play. And if you feel inclined to do so, just move and sit next to somebody else, or move away from somebody, or take somebody's hand, or put your arm around somebody if you feel it. And don't feel you've got to make conversation or talk. You might just say, I love you, or it's very warm tonight, or something, but don't get into what would end up being an improvisation, because as soon as you start talking, you can't talk like the character yet. That's a big leap, and therefore you'll dissipate and thin out what you're doing because it will sound wrong. Okay, and so they're starting to be aware of each other. I did do an exercise that was very slow years ago when I worked in Lambda. I don't do it very much now, but it's quite helpful. You get the actors to sit in a big circle in their character, and you then have them look at all, everybody's in their character, and you say to the person playing Masha, I want you to just look at each of these people in turn as you go around the circle and see what you think or how do you feel about them. And if you don't feel anything, it doesn't matter, but just don't try to concoct anything, don't act with them. Something might pass between you, because if you look at them a little bit critically, they might respond. I don't know, but don't get, and it's slow because then you just do it, and some actors take forever and ever. They stare at somebody, you know, for hours and hours. But it's quite a good way to make sure that you've been in touch with every character, because A lot of characters don't meet very much, or they don't talk to each other in a play. They may be in the same space with each other, but they actually don't have any conversation. And by the way, you do this with all the characters, the whole character list, even with a servant, even with somebody who's got one line, because they all live in the play and they all have their importance. And also, it helps to make the actor who's playing a small role feel involved and not, oh, I'm just doing this one line or whatever it is, you know. So you're enriching their experience too. So that is the process. And ultimately, what is happening is at the same time you're working on the text, understanding the situations, playing the drama of it, communicating, understanding the language, and you're absorbing the Russianness of the play, shall we say, or the acrobatics, or the curtsying, bowing of a lady, you know, on the world side of your work. And what is happening, the character work and the cultural world stylistic slices of rehearsal are slowly in their own time infiltrating the text. And actors are doing this at different speeds because they're absorbing. And slowly things are starting to happen in the text work. And suddenly you think, oh my God, they're actually playing the play and there's a lot of stuff going on. A little corollary to that is when you're working on the text, do not discuss character, discuss objectives and the situation. Because again, the whole of this process is based on the idea that the actor should only have one thing to think about at a time. I don't know what your experience of working in theatre is, but I have the feeling, and I think I've suffered it myself, is that all the actors come with conscious and unconscious agendas. And if the director doesn't sort of control the flow, we're working on a scene, and then suddenly somebody says, what sort of clothes am I wearing here? Or what's the political relevance? Or how am I feeling in this scene? They've all got problems and anxieties and which are justified and they're reasonable questions. And what you can do is you can just blur the whole rehearsal. So nobody's working on anything specifically. It's just a grab of, oh, maybe a little bit of character discussion here, a little bit about emotional life, here about objectives, here about what does the text mean, here about the themes, here about the political, you know. And so you stagger through with it being a very bitty, messy rehearsal. And often because an awful lot of talking is involved in this, people go home and have said to me, we rehearsed all week and nothing happened. I felt no change whatsoever. We were always talking. And some people want to get on with the scene. They don't want to have to kick their, you know, stand around kicking their heels while the director and that particular actor who's asked a question go into a long discussion. And often just to calm an actor, I say, look, hold that question. I promise we will get to it. And if I don't get to it, remind me. And then periodically through rehearsals, like every 8th day or 10th day or whatever, I might say, okay, today, let's have a little sort of roundup of where we think we are. Are you happy? Do you feel we're going in the right direction? Do you get a sense of what we're doing? Do say if you've got any worries or you're confused or not clear. And then we have a discussion. And that session is clearly about that. You see, so it's isolating. So, and also, if you're all working on one problem or issue together, there's a sense of ensemble. All of us are contributing to the same exploration.
Yeah.
You see, and that keeps the company together. And it also means the work is much more intensive and thorough,
yeah,
and clear. And at the end of the day, the actors feel they've done something.
Yeah.
Okay, so that essentially is the work on character. But of course, I'm doing a lot of physical work to help with the characterization.
Do you want to bring this part of our conversation to a close and then talk about the physical stuff at another stage? Yeah?
That would be a good idea, yes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now, Mike, and we'll reconvene in a minute. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that chat. And if you did, would you press the like button and also the subscribe button? That would be great. And if you wanted to be given alerts to when the next one is happening, just press the bell button. If you want to put any comments or any questions underneath here, underneath the video, please do. And at some point I will re-interview Mike, as it were, and put some of these questions to him. So I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.